You can just take notes here, write down. What do we have so far? Quarter note. All right, so fundamentals. Music. Fundamentals. You can write down everything I put on the board here. Let me move this up a bit. Musical alphabet. Have you had any instrument lessons?
Piano.
Piano. And when was that?
45 years ago.
45. Okay, so let's go over everything. Musical alphabet is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Music is like time. So in that we have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. There's no 13 o'clock. Or you could say 13 o'clock equals 1 o'clock. That's time. That's called modulus arithmetic. This is music. We have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There's no H. We just go back to A. After G is A, and before A was G. So that's the musical alphabet. And it goes round and round and round and round. This here is called the staff. Before we get to this thing, let's see how the staff is constructed. The staff, I think of it as like the wait staff in a restaurant. They're the people who work for you. These are the lines that work for you when you're a musician. So the staff is 11 lines. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll put the 11th one up there. That's an 11-line staff. And that covers these notes here. But the problem is, even if I put the clefs over here, right, the treble and the bass clef, even if I write a note right here, I'll show you how to draw those in a minute. It's too difficult to see where that note is. It's too difficult to know what that note is, especially when your eyes are far from the clef. So what we do is we erase one of the lines, thereby allowing our eyes to see better where these lines are. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll erase this 6th line right here. We just get rid of it. Now, we have a 10-line staff, or 2 5-line staffs. But that line is still there. It's just invisible. It's just an invisible line right there. You can't see it. can't see the middle line. In fact, tell you what, let's use yellow. That's a little bit more invisible. But if we need it, we're going to draw it. So let's say I need it right here. Boom, I'll draw it. And that's what we call middle C. You know middle C?
Really good.
Oh, well, it's the C in the middle of the piano. Let's play middle C. That's middle C. Boom. That's that note. That's what a note looks like on the staff. And that's what it sounds like on the piano. And you can play it on the guitar. So that's middle C. So after C, middle C is on the line. It's on the invisible line in the staff. We have to draw the line. And these are called ledger lines. So it's actually, instead of saying 11 lines, we'll say the staff is 11 ledger lines, because we create a ledger. Accountants will crunch numbers on the ledger. 100 minus in profit minus 1,000 in taxes equals you owe $900 to Big Uncle, right? So the accountants use the ledgers. Musicians use the ledger as well to write music. And you can always draw more ledger lines if you need them, right? If you want to go down here, you know. Whatever. So you can draw those down there in the bass clef, and you can draw these up here. You can draw ledger lines up here if you need them. Just hammer away. Draw whatever you need. If you run out of lines, if you go above the register. So C is on the middle line right there. Then we have D, which is on the space. So we're going to go line, space. Then we have E, which is on the line, the bottom line on the treble staff. We have F, G, and after G would be A. C, D, E, F, G, A. Here you go. You want to write that there? You can connect these with a line like that. You can connect the top and bottom staff with a line, and that turns into what we call the grand staff. So if we draw a line connecting two 5-line staves, that line is called a bar line. Bar line, this purple line. Now everything in music has two names. It's also called the measure line. Why does everything in music have two names? Well, you got this planet Earth here, right? And maybe this guy over here calls it a bar line. This guy over here calls it a measure line. And then one day the telephone's invented, and they call each other up. And they say, hey, are you looking at the score I'm looking at? Go to measure 35. And this guy says, what do you mean measure? You know, 35 measures over. He says, oh, you mean bar? Yeah, bar? Okay, bar, measure. So language evolves in two different places. So everything in music has two names. So we can call it a bar line or a measure line. Okay, and that divides the music into bars. So if I put a bar line over here, now I have one bar. This whole thing is called a bar. Jazz musicians will usually call it a bar, because that's where you find jazz musicians, at the bar. No, that's just my joke. Classical musicians will usually call it a measure. And pop musicians, you know, pop music. She packed my bags last night, pre-flight, 0 hour, 9 a.m. Pop, they'll call it bar or measure. They just go back and forth, and I go back and forth, bar, measure. I use them interchangeably. So that's bar 1. This would be bar 2. This is the top staff, this is the bottom staff. Now, when you put the two staves, I say staves, staves together, and you connect them with a bracket, a curly bracket. This becomes what we call the grand staff. And that's what we call it. So you want to know that. The grand staff. The grand staff. So this is the grand staff. And the grand staff has middle C eliminated. It's invisible. Alright? So when we go down, CFE, GFE, DCBA, we'll work on saying that. Middle C is the middle line. The space below that is B. The line below that is A. The space below that is G. The line below that is F. The space below that is E. And so on. It just goes in alphabetic order. E, F, G, and then we reset. After G, we go to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. After that, we reset. We go back to A. And these are all the white keys on the piano. We only draw the white keys on the piano here. Do you have any questions? All right. Feel free to ask questions. Don't worry about the camera. So we're learning the musical language, because we'll need to know it anyway. So let's draw the treble clef. Let's learn how to draw the treble clef. What is the treble clef? Well,
The top one.
yeah, this is called the treble clef. Let me teach you how to draw it, then we'll define what it is and how it works, because everybody looks at that and goes, how do we draw that? So take the, draw a G, like that. Please. I'm so bossy. Please draw a G. Okay? Draw a big old long J. Doesn't have to be that fancy, you can just do that. Or you can just do that. Doesn't make a difference. Draw the J through the G. That's your treble clef. Now, we can get rid of this part over here. We can just draw the number 6. Okay, and then draw the J through the number 6. Now, there's a line going through the treble clef. The scroll of the treble clef scrolls through one of the lines on the staff. Okay, that line is G. That note is G.
That one is.
So if you have a staff, a 5-line staff, this second line up from the bottom is G. And we're going to draw our 6 and scroll around the G. And that's how we know that's G. Never draw a treble clef from the bottom up. It will not look good. You could do it 4,000 times, it will still look horrible. There's only one way to draw the treble clef. 6, J. You can put a little fancy curl on top and then, do stuff like that. You can make it all fancy. That's fine, but it's still a 6 and a J. The more you draw a 6 and a J, the more fancy you'll get. Now let's look at these words. Actually, before we do that, why does this represent G? Let's look at print and cursive. This is how you draw a G in print. In cursive, that's a G. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. And then we have this other thing here called calligraphy. I don't know if it has one L's or two. Maybe I spelled it wrong. Calligraphy is how you draw a G. That's a G. The treble clef is a G. See, the monks in the Catholic Church, hundreds of years ago, 400, 500, 600 years ago, they had a lot of time on their hands. So they like to draw real fancy because they had nothing to do all day but transcribe stuff. So instead of being like, okay, I gotta draw this G real fast, they're like, you know, and then they put all this other fancy stuff and, you know, put it like this and blah, blah, blah. And you get what is called these ligatures, and you look at these scores from 700, 800 years ago or 600 years ago, and they're all real fancy, okay? They had a lot of time to do this, but it's just a G. And why is it a G? Well, you need something. So if I give you a 5-line staff, it turns out the notes on the top staff are different from the notes on the bottom staff. So if I draw a staff, and I say, here, sing that note. You're gonna tell me, well, what note is that? Oh, sorry. Yeah. What note is that? I don't know. What note? And I say, oh, okay, well, I'll tell you, that note's G. Okay, well, so that's a G then. And that means that's an A, B, F, E, D, so forth. So that's your pinpoint. That's your grounding point where we tell you what the note is. They just drew it real fancy, that's all. But it's just a G. So it turns out the treble clef, like the bar and measure, has two names. Okay, we can call it the treble clef, and we can call it the G clef. Conductors, we usually call it the G clef. And then orchestra players and professional orchestras will usually get to a point where they start calling it the G clef. Everybody else calls it the treble clef. Treble means high frequency. So on the old stereos, or your stereo in the car, you adjust the treble and you adjust the bass. High frequency, which looks like this. As opposed to bass, which means low frequency, and those frequencies look like that. It's physics now. Oh. So the word clef is the French word for key. Now, the violin was developed out of the lute in Italy, and that's where we ended up getting our string orchestras, and then migrated to the other countries in Europe. So we use Italian words: allegro, presto, crescendo. We always use Italian words in music, but not the word clef. The word clef is French for key. So I say, I've lost my clef. Je clef. Whatever. I don't speak French very well. I only took 5 years of it, but I don't speak it very well. Can't speak it at all. Clef means key. So treble clef.
I took Russian all through college and it's gone.
Oh, привет. I know 2 words in Russia. 3 words. Привет, Kogdala, and Niet.
How are you?
Yeah, Kogdala. Whatever it is. Treble. So this literally translates to the high keys. This is a key on the piano. What do keys do? What's a key to a door? It unlocks the door. This key unlocks the sound. So it's a key. So it's everything, treble clef is everything above middle C. You can include middle C in there. Yeah. So that's treble clef. Now we could also call it the G clef because it's the letter G, which means the G key. So if we want to think of it as plural, it's plural. If we want to think of it as singular, it's that note right there. I play the G key above middle C. And that's the treble clef. Literally, that's the G key, that's the G clef. Because we're going to put that note right on G. So it has two names. So when we have a 5-line staff, when we put the treble clef on the staff becomes the treble staff. And then we have our middle C right there. And then we have our bass staff. So let's look at bass. Because the guitar is an accompaniment instrument, the guitar has bass notes and treble notes. Because the guitar goes below middle C. Now for bass, I just like to use the color green. Bass, staff. Let's call it bass clef. We can also call it the F clef. So let's take a look at our print, cursive, calligraphy. Now one L or two?
I think it's 2.
Calligraphy. F. That's how we write F in print. Cursive. Calligraphy. So the print turns into the cursive, and you can see how the cursive
Oh, interesting.
turns into the calligraphy. That's an F. And we write the F
See it now.
note right there. That's F. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's our F staff, our bass staff. Yeah, good. And then you can connect them with a line to get a grand staff and a bracket. Because that would actually be 2 separate lines. Yeah, there you go.
How's your bracket doing this year?
What's that?
How's your bracket doing this year?
I don't have a bracket this year. But when I was a junior in school, I knew nothing about basketball. But my brother had a friend who knew everything about basketball. And I brought this thing home to my brother. And I'm like, I paid him $20. And my brother goes, give it a Wei Chen. He's a Chinese guy. So I'm like, okay. So he took it, he gave it back to me. I didn't even look at it. I just turned it in. I won the pot.
Oh, nice.
By a long shot. I think we had like UConn winning or something.
My wife does that with my son. He picks them and she pays. And then she's in first place right now.
And some guy just came up to me in school one day. He's like, "Here," he handed me $200. I'm like, "What's this for?" He's like, "You won the you won the bracket." I'm like, "What bracket?" I'm like, "Oh, I forgot about that." Yeah, that was kind of a funny experience. All right, so we have the bass clef. It looks like this. Which clef is the French word for key, so that means the low key. That's literally what it transfers. Bass means low frequency in physics. Okay? Low frequency, waves that look like that. So the bass clef is literally translates to low keys, which is everything below middle C. Okay? I just like playing that. You know what that's from? Mario Brothers? Anyway.
No.
Low key, bass clef. You can also call it the F clef. Conductors usually call it the F clef. Everybody else usually calls it the bass clef. And that just translates to the F key. Which is that. Play the F key below middle C, please. That's what it is. And that's that note right there. So we'll move this thing up. When you put the bass clef on the staff, it becomes the bass staff. It's kind of a, well, yeah, of course, but you know, we have to say it. Bass staff. When you connect, like a violin would only use the treble staff. A cello would only use the bass staff. But a piano or a guitar has the whole range. Here's middle C. Go in both directions. Up and down. So we have to use both staves. So when you connect both staves with a bar line and a curly bracket, the two staves together becomes the grand staff. Very important. The grand staff. The grand staff. We have the treble staff. We have the bass staff, and those two dots will go in between the F. Right, so here's G, here's F. That's how we find where we are, and then everything else. We have to learn to say the alphabet backward. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G, F, E, D, C, B, A. And I practiced that, so it's not easy to do. And then we have middle C in the middle. And that's the C in the middle of the piano. D is actually in the middle of the piano, but we don't call it middle D. We call it the D above middle C. We'll talk about why later. We don't have time for that. But that's middle C. The C above middle C is called high C. Now, there are C's that are much higher than high C, but we call this high C. The C below middle C is called low C. And then if we draw two lines below the bass staff, we also get C. That's called Contra C. Kind of need to know these because we refer to them quite a bit. And then if we draw two lines, two ledger lines above the staff, that's also C. So two lines below the bass staff is C. Two lines above the treble staff is C. That's called Piccolo C. double high C. And contra means double low. So the double bass could also be called the contra bass. So these are our major markers on the staff. You want to know these notes. That's going to help you navigate reading music. Any questions?
So when you look at and actually read sheet music, it doesn't matter whether it's for piano or guitar, or it's just, you're looking at the notes, you just need to know what the notes are.
Doesn't matter. It's all the same. Guitar has other types of notation.
Right.
And this is what we call music reading music. If somebody says they know how to read music, they're talking about the staff.
Right.
And now we understand this grand staff. And then, yeah, we'll get into all that other stuff some other time. So we would have had to do this anyway. So, if your fingers are hurting, now's a good time to do it.
So my hand ramps up.